So today's video is about rational numbers and the different classifications of rational numbers. So we're going to talk about natural numbers, which are also called counting numbers. We're going to talk about whole numbers, we're going to talk about integers, and then we're going to talk about the bigger overlying category of rational numbers. So let's first talk about the smallest category within that big rational number system, which we call counting numbers, which are also called natural numbers. And when you think of the word counting numbers, I kind of just think, well, just start counting. So counting numbers are any number you would say if you traditionally count it. So like on Sesame Street, when they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., those are counting numbers. They're all the numbers you say when you count. The next level up would be whole numbers. So you have counting numbers and whole numbers. Every single counting number is a whole number. The only additional number that's included in whole numbers that's not included in counting numbers is the number 0. So really, the whole numbers are only one number bigger of a number system, of a group of numbers, than counting numbers are. So you have counting numbers, which are the numbers you say when you count. You have whole numbers, which are all the counting numbers, and 0. And then you have integers. Counting, whole, integers. So integers is a set of numbers, which is a group of numbers, that include all of the whole numbers, so that's the counting numbers and 0, as well as their opposites. So you're still talking about numbers that don't have fractions or decimals or parts attached to it. You're talking about the whole numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., and their opposites, integers, which is like -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if you look at looked at a traditional number line where you started at 0 and you went to the right for positives and the left for negatives, the numbers that you would traditionally write on a number line, those are your integers. And then the biggest category, the ones that we're speaking of in the most in this unit, is rational numbers. So a rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction, where the numerator and the denominator are both integers, and the denominator isn't 0. So the way that I think about it is it's any number that can be written as a fraction that you wouldn't have to change. So 2.5 over 5, well, 2.5 isn't really an integer, so we would have to change that to be an equivalent fraction. We're going to think about rational numbers as all numbers that can be written as a fraction. So a fraction is a fraction. It's a rational number. An integer can be written as a fraction because you can just put that number over 1. Integer, -1. -1 as a fraction is -1 over 1. Whole numbers, let's just say 2. 2 you make into a fraction by putting it over 1. So 2 over 1 is 2. What you have to start thinking about is the fact that decimals are the hardest types of numbers to classify, because some decimals end up being what we call irrational, which we're going to talk about in a couple of units from now. The decimals that we care about in rational numbers are the ones that stop, like 0.5 or 0.82. They terminate, they stop. They're called terminating decimals because they stop. They can be made into a fraction, which we're going to learn at the end of this unit. And then repeating decimals, like 0.3333 repeating with the repeating bar over it, or 0.424242 with the repeating bar over it. Those decimals can be made into fractions as well. So basically, when you're thinking about rational numbers, you're thinking about counting numbers, whole numbers, which are counting numbers and 0, integers, which are whole numbers and their opposites. And then in addition to integers, you're talking about fractions, decimals that end, which are called terminating decimals, and decimals that repeat, which are obviously called repeating decimals. They have a pattern, 428, 428, 428, and are notated by a repeating bar, and they can be made into a fraction. So here is written the definitions and some examples of what we spoke about in the video. Some of you would rather see it than hear it, so I figure I'd give you some of these definitions as well as examples, which are things that are part of the set of numbers, and non-examples, which are examples that are not part of the set of numbers. So if I look at whole numbers, as we spoke about, they're the counting numbers, which are all positive and 0. So a non-example of that would be any negative number, as well as any positive fraction or negative fraction. That's why the non-examples for whole numbers are -1, -4, and 1/2. You're responsible for these 4. And to tie it into this unit, just remember that at first we were doing order of operations with whole numbers, and then we went into order of operations with integers. And then the ones that are the hardest are the order of operations with rational numbers, because those are the positive and negative fractions. So we've been using all of these terms in our unit, and now they should actually make more sense to you.